Hi guys, and hello from the hilltop. I'm Waxahachie Blue, and I want to welcome you to my channel. It's been a while, hasn't it? My apologies for being away, and in fact, while I have been journaling while I've been away, as you can plainly see from my July and my upcoming August spreads. But life kind of caught up with me, and I needed to take a break. So this particular video will be about setting up my September spreads for my Archer and Olive 160 GSM notebook here. So as you can see, I have been journaling through both July and August, and I was actually in the process of working on my July video when life threw a monkey wrench very much in my way. So I'll just start from the top. But before I do that, here is where we've reached September. And so the color that I will be using for the month of September is this lovely kind of neutral sage green from the Zebra Mod Liner Neutral Pack, as well as a few black markers that I will be using. A lot of the lines and stuff I used this Le pen, and then I also used a Sakura brush pen for some art, and then I forget what the other one is, Kuretake, I think, but it's alright. So while I'm thinking of my quote that I wanted to use for September, I'll tell you about how things have been going. So I had filmed my July spreads and was getting ready to start editing them when a very large storm came through where I live. It was actually a bit of a tornado touchdown, although we were not in the path or anything of that nature. But we did end up losing power for several hours, and we had quite a bit of damage both to my house as well as to our vehicles. To put it frankly, the hail that came through was about the size of baseballs, and it took out all 8 north-facing windows on our house, all of the windshields in our vehicles. The roof that's only recently been put on in the last year will have to be replaced, and there was just quite a bit of damage. And to be fair, like I said, we were not in the direct path of the tornado, and we did not get it nearly as bad as some of our neighbors. But it was just one of those situations, like the quote says, sometimes you need to take a step back to go forward. I took this as a sign that I kind of needed to take a break. I was from bullet journaling, or at least filming my bullet journaling. While I do love filming and editing and getting these videos out to y'all, it was just one of the situations where I just didn't have enough. I just couldn't keep all the plates spinning. Something had to give, and this ended up being the thing that gave. So like I said, real life took priority, having to deal with cleaning up glass, cleaning up hail, cleaning up the whole mess that comes after a big storm like that. We ended up having to rip the carpet out of my parents' bedroom because it was soaked and it was going to mold. My mother is 75. She is not in the physical condition to be doing a lot of bending over and cleaning up like that, so I tried to take the reins. My oldest brother was very kind, and he and his wife came out and brought us a vehicle to temporarily use while ours were being looked after and hopefully windshields eventually replaced. But in the meantime, it was just clean up everything. Immediately after that, around the 30th, I ended up having a small foot surgery in order to remove a bone spur from old scar tissue from a car accident I had in 2009, which put me down for a few weeks or so recovering from that. Add to that, I actually ended up getting an infection from where one of the stitches was, and so the recovery time went even longer. So as you can see, real life was really trying to catch up with me and tell me some stuff. But while I'm talking about that, you're probably wondering, why are you drawing semicircles on your page? Well, you'll see here in a minute that these semicircles are actually, excuse me, I caught a hiccup right there. They're actually going to be ladybugs. So as you can see, I tried using this particular, I think it's a Kuretake pen, and it just really wasn't working out to get the black for the ladybug head that I wanted. So I ended up pulling out my Sakura brush tip, just because it it made getting the black of at least the head a lot easier. And so that's what I did. As for the antennae and the dots for the ladybugs and the 6 legs, because they are insects and so they need 6 legs, I used either my Le Pen or I used my, I think it's the Kuretake, I forget what it is. But they're extremely minimalist little ladybugs. They're actually inspired by an old book I had when I was a child, which was called One Green Frog. It was one of those cardboard, children's count to 10 books, and it had cutouts for, the one green frog was winking at you, so he had one eye, things like that. But the very last page was covered in ladybugs, mostly pink, but there was also some green and even some orange, and I didn't really want to repeat myself for like a floral or plant theme like I did for March, so I thought these little green ladybugs were a nice change of pace. And they're very simple. It's quite literally a semicircle with a black triangle on one end, and then however many dots you want to use for your ladybug. One had 3, one had 5, 2 antennae, and then 6 legs, which I did in pairs of 2. So I did end up moving slightly back the front 2 legs, just because some of them it looked like they had buck teeth. So it is what it is. So back to my tale of woe. And I do mean that. Whoa. So after my surgery, we rolled right into the 4th of July, which I was still kind of down and out because I was recuperating from my surgery, which is fine. Take the holiday and just rest and relax. I spent the 4th of July exactly how I wanted to, with my foot propped up and doing a puzzle. I know, I'm so boring, but that's what I wanted to do. To be fair, it was 1,000 pieces and it had chickens on it. You gotta go with what you got. So that was how I spent my 4th of July, recuperating, and then it was back to work. Now, my particular job is a clerical, governmental type job. I am in charge of the financial budget for who I work for, which my job does by fiscal year, which a fiscal year is July 1st through June 30th. So I was knee deep in budget stuff for the upcoming fiscal year, making sure that the final quarter and everything was wrapped up with a bow, and then of course getting everything prepped for the upcoming year's budget, getting things submitted to the auditor, and just lots of things that come due when the new fiscal year starts. And so work was keeping me very busy. On top of that, we also had the county fair at the beginning of August. I took a couple of days off in order to help my mom with that, because she was in charge of the quilts and the crafts, and the last thing I need is a 75-year-old woman climbing a ladder to hang a very heavy king-size quilt. So I took those days off in order to help her with that. And then that kind of almost catches us up. I've been busy still with work, but it has slightly lessened. And I'm actually looking forward to an upcoming vacation, which I don't think I've actually had a proper vacation since Christmas of 2020. I have decided to treat myself to a comic convention. It's happening in Colorado Springs. So if you happen to be there, cool, fantastic. It's happening this weekend. No pressure. But I heard that a couple of my all-time favorite voice actors, as well as some actual actors that I greatly admire, will be there, and so I decided to take the opportunity to go to Colorado Springs, spend a weekend, and just have a little bit of me time before my life decides to catch up with me again. Because as soon as I come back, I have to then wash clothes, turn around, and go out of town again for a 4-day conference that has to do with work. And then I will be spending pretty much the entirety of September in classes working towards a curriculum that I am in that is part of my job. So long story short, my busy season is still not over, and it won't won't stop work-wise until we get closer to Thanksgiving, and then we fall right into the holidays. So my hamster wheel is always spinning, whether it's a work hamster wheel or a home hamster wheel. So for those of you who haven't watched much of my videos or are ever curious of how I create this 2-page calendar, I have a formula that I use in order to make sure that it's centered every time. So the formula is, it is 4 spaces down from the bottom, or from the top, sorry. Then it is 1 square grid for the weeks of the month, the Monday through Sunday, because that's how I set up my bullet journal. I know I'm a little weird, but in a calendar spread like this, I like to see my weekends on one side. I actually have something very similar at my office, which people find weird, but it keeps the weekends on one end, and so I can really focus on what's coming up for the week. I do the same in my weeklies. They are set up Monday through Sunday. It just works better for my brain. As for the actual boxes for each of the days of the month, they are 6 tall by 5 wide. That gives me the extra space at the top in order to do a stripe of color for where I can write the number for each day. And so the actual writing space for any information from my days of the month are actually 5 by 5. So the only time this doesn't work is if there is an extra spare day. Sometimes that happens where there's a spare day or two either at the beginning or the end of a month. And if that's the case, then the math doesn't really work. So what I do to compensate for that is I will cut a day or two in half. I don't do the diagonal lines. I think that's silly. It's just a waste of space. So I will do a horizontal line and just cut that day in half. Yes, it's a tight squeeze, especially if something's happening on those days. But 9 times out of 10, right at the beginning or an end of a month like that, it's very rare for me to be extremely busy. And if I really need the extra space, then I'll just write it elsewhere. I'll make a little note section or something and just have an abbreviated form in the month, and then I will write it more thoroughly either in my weeklies or in the extra space. Speaking of extra space, you might have noticed I accidentally made one too many boxes at the top, but it's okay. I eventually camouflage it with a ladybug, or I try to anyway. You know how ladybugs are. So here we have September. There are 30 days in September. I will fill this particular one out, but I will let you know towards the upcoming weeklies. My weekly boxes were already designed, just like my September sticker was already inputted into the spreads. I had gone ahead and did my weekly boxes, mostly because the first week in August does include the first week in September still has several days worth of August, and that is where some of my upcoming projects are. And so I needed to go ahead and make those weeklies set up so that way I have them prepped basically. So I'll go ahead. I zoomed in here just so you can kind of see the ladybugs as they are being done. I would have zoomed in more, but I'm kind of all over the spread here, and so it just makes it easy. But in the meantime, I'll stop talking so you guys can just kind of watch the art and listen to the music, and I'll catch up with you when we reach the weeklies. So how do you like my ladybugs? You think they turned out? I think they did okay. So speaking of things I had already set up, I went ahead and did my budget spread. You've seen me do it a million times, and I do it the same way every time. But here's how I said my weeklies were already kind of set up. As you can see, that first week of September, which has several days, 4 days worth of August, and I needed the space in order to kind of math out for my upcoming conference. And then I went ahead and kind of at least set up the numbers for the habit tracker as well as the weight tracker, because I find it tedious to write 1 through 30 twice. But I am highlighting the weekends, because that just kind of helps break up the space for my brain in order to really see where my weekends are. So I will openly admit, when it comes to tracking my weight, I have kind of fallen on my proverbial face. I've kind of stepped off the scale, for lack of a better term, just letting my body rest. To better explain myself, this past year or so, I ended up having quite a bit of a mental battle with my relationship with food. And about this time last year, I decided to take a break from my ketogenic journey and just let myself relax and let my brain reset when it came to that relationship with food. However, I will say after the surgery that I had in November, which was actually quite a major surgery, and it took me a while to recover, and then of course the holidays and just life being life, I put some weight back on. I was not particularly happy with myself, but it is what it is. Now, I haven't changed pant sizes, despite what my genes would like to say otherwise. I refused to go back up in size, and so that was kind of my wake-up call that I needed to really focus and get back into my ketogenic lifestyle. And I've been doing so good so far. To be fair, it's only been for the month of August, but it's doing okay. I give myself some grace where it is. I try not to pressure myself too much, and try to focus on the things that I can control, and the things that I can't, just let it go. So here are my little ladybugs at the top. I loved having the little ladybug there, the baby bug. I did go over him twice with a zebra mod liner just to give him a little bit of a darker color, just to make him a little easier to stand out. This is also where I started changing where I put the front 2 legs of the ladybugs. I put them farther back, so they're after that black triangle for the most part. Makes them look more like legs and less like buck teeth. I did also contemplate using a white jelly roll just to see, give them a dot for an eyeball, but I decided against it. I kind of like them without faces. They're supposed to be extremely minimal, and so it's just keep them simple, and everybody can draw their own ladybugs how they want to. They can have as many dots as they want, and they can have as many antennae or whatever you want to do with them. They're your ladybugs, and draw them as you wish. But as you can see from my weeklies, things on my weekly spreads have to do both with work as well as my personal life, and you might be able to notice some of the things on my weeklies, like payroll or write-in candidate filing day. I do work in a governmental capacity, and so that's one reason why when I get busy, I get very, very busy. This particular year for the state that I live in is going to be a regular local election, which it's going to be interesting. So I did skip the middle page. Every quarter I always end up having 3 pages. Just that's how the months work out. So I skipped the middle. I do draw the ladybugs, but it's just a little too time consuming to film it. So I'll show it in the flip through, but I won't show me drawing it right now. I did have fun drawing this upside down ladybug just because I thought it was goofy. But the extra page, since there's always 3 pages worth of weeklies, I always save the last page for the quarterly check-in, which actually comes in pretty handy. In case you were curious, the quarterly check-in is pretty much where I write, all the things that were good for the quarter, all the things that could be improved on in the quarter, or any additional information that I need to put down. So after the car issues, that's actually the spot where I put all of my information for my claims number with the insurance and things, just to all keep it in the same place. So that's how that particularly worked out. But otherwise, I'm essentially done. This is a very quick setup. The ladybugs are pretty darn simple. They're just semicircles with dots and a triangle for a head. And there's my weeklies and my quarterly check-in, and I'll just stop. But while I'm writing here, my cursive, or my curly words, as I have been told they're called, I do want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day to sit and watch my video. Thank you. If you feel inclined, feel free to leave me a comment, thumbs up if you liked the video, subscribe if you want to see some more. I am going to try to get back into my monthly video for each of my monthly setups. I just don't have the time in me to do any additional videos other than those, and then maybe my flip through at the end of the year. So, but this is how it looks. I'll leave you to the flip through, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in October. Bye bye.